Hello, and welcome to episode 265 of the Quiet and Strong podcast, especially for introverts. I'm your host, David Hall, and the creator of quietandstrong.com. This is a weekly podcast dedicated to understanding the strengths and needs of introverts, along with strategies for success. Introversion is not something to fix, but to be embraced. Normally, we will air each episode on a Monday. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform, leave a review or a rating. That would mean a lot to me, and of course, help others find the show. Tell a friend about the podcast and help get the word out there that introversion is a beautiful thing. So, FeedSpot recently named the Quiet and Strong podcast as one of the 25 best shy podcasts to listen to in 2026. I was honored to be recognized by FeedSpot. Also, watch for my appearance on the Shyness podcast with Marcel Maza. Marcel is doing some great work in helping people overcome shyness. So, overcoming shyness and gaining confidence is a reoccurring topic on the Quiet and Strong podcast with both me and my guests. Introversion and shyness are often incorrectly used, and it's as if they're the same thing, and they're not. I know shy extroverts, and I know confident and outspoken introverts. A powerful way to overcome shyness and gain confidence is to understand your introversion and other aspects of your personality and begin to see them, if you don't already, as strengths. So, this is one of the biggest myths about introversion that we regularly bust on the show. It's not the same thing as shyness. Shyness is about a lack of confidence or insecurity in certain situations. The great news is shyness can be overcome, greatly reduced, and confidence can be gained. There can be many causes for shyness or a lack of confidence, but for many introverts, this can be done by coming to understand your personality, your strengths, your needs. Introversion is about how you process information internally, and that we spend more time in our inner world of ideas and imagination. Introverts do need some time alone to think, to focus, to plan, to dream. And we often need time alone to recharge after some social interactions that we find draining. So, all introverts need some time alone, but there needs to be an appropriate balance with social time and solitude. Most everyone wants connections and relationships. Very few people want to be alone all the time. Introverts just may prefer different types of social activities, different settings, perhaps smaller groups or one-on-one interactions. And the cool thing is you get to decide what's best for you. Extroverts tend to process externally and focus more on the outer world around them. And sometimes extroverts can get frustrated with excessive isolation. But even extroverts need some time alone. Our personalities come to us naturally, and they're not a choice. It's how we're wired. But the key is to understand your gifts and embrace your gifts and honor your needs, whatever your personality style. So let's chat about how shyness can be overcome and confidence can be gained through self-awareness. And keep in mind, this journey, it can take some time, but start. And no matter what, none of us are perfect. We'll still have our moments. We'll still have our awkward times from time to time. When I was younger, I was shy. I tried to fix myself. I read some books about shyness, but they didn't seem to help because they weren't addressing the root of who I was. They didn't talk about introversion. They didn't talk about me needing to think before speaking. They didn't talk about deep processing and working with your natural talents instead of against them. Eventually, I realized something life-changing. I could overcome shyness, but I'd always be an introvert. And that's a good thing. My ability to think deeply, analyze, and see the big picture are great strengths for me. As I developed self-awareness, my confidence grew. I stopped trying to be like everyone else and started valuing my own gifts. I learned to embrace the quieter moments, recognizing them as opportunities for reflection and creativity rather than isolation. Instead of forcing myself into extroverted scenarios that drained me, I sought out situations that allowed for meaningful one-on-one conversations or perhaps smaller group settings. As I understood my own needs better, I began to advocate for myself and my needs. I learned to leverage my analytical strengths to be successful. I found that I could contribute in ways that felt authentic to me Acting authentically brought greater success and effectiveness. Through this journey, I've connected with other introverts, both on and off of the podcast, who've shared similar experiences. We've exchanged stories, strategies, support. It's empowering to know I'm not alone. You're not alone. And again, there's nothing wrong with your introversion, but possibly there could be something wrong with how you understand it. And you can come to understand yourself and really embrace who you are and find greater success and happiness. So now I actively cultivate environments that honor both my needs and strengths, whether it's setting some quiet time to think or taking breaks to recharge during some busy times or draining situations. I've learned to navigate the world in a way that allows me to thrive. Understanding and accepting my introverted nature has transformed me. Rather than merely surviving social dynamics, I'm truly living and contributing on my own terms. So how do we gain self-awareness? Something that really helped me was the Myers-Briggs assessment. It shows introversion, extroversion, but along with some other personality factors. And so keep in mind that not all introverts are alike. So it's helpful to see some other personality factors as well for yourself. As I'm talking today, I might mention some strengths that I have, and you might relate to some, but not to others, even if we're both introverts. So it's helpful to see all the different aspects of our personality and not just introversion, extroversion. I got certified in giving the Myers-Briggs, and in these workshops, I remember the facilitator saying, introverts think and then speak, and extroverts speak in order to think. This was one of those light bulb moments for me. Not understanding this in the past contributed to my shyness. If you're thinking, sharing what you think is most important, while other conversation partners are sharing most everything and perhaps saying, why are you so quiet? You can feel shy and marginalized. But understanding this and many other things about introversion can be life-changing. About the same time I got certified to give the Myers-Briggs, I got certified to give what's now known as CliftonStrengths from the Gallup organization. And CliftonStrengths isn't about introversion and extroversion, but it is about naturally occurring talents. For example, I'm analytical. I've always been analytical. Ask my parents, wondering, why did this happen and how can I make this better? Analytical is one of what they call your top five. So they give you your top five strengths. Like another one of mine is it's called ideation. It means I have ideas all the time, which, could be for introverts or extroverts, but I know that's an introverted gift I have is that I have ideas all the time. So altogether, there's 34 themes of talent. And the idea is that you work on your strengths for your top five instead of trying to fix all your weaknesses. And I have found this to be the case that you can go so much farther by focusing on what is uniquely yours, focusing on your gifts rather than spending all your time on your weaknesses. You have to deal with your weaknesses, but often you could deal with them with your strengths. So, one way to take an assessment, go to the personality assessment tab on the quietandstrong.com website, and you can get your 4-digit Myers-Briggs code that way. There are great books out there. I asked my introverted guests, hey, when did you discover that you were an introvert? So often the answer they give, they read Susan Cain's book, Quiet, and they came away from that book, hey, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm an introvert, and that's a good thing. I also highly recommend this book. It was helpful for me. Susan also has a very famous TED Talk you can watch on YouTube. I just looked, 17 million views. Another book I highly recommend is Introvert Power by Lori Helgo. Big takeaways for me, there's great power in introversion, as the title suggests. Lori also pointed out that introverts make up about half the population, perhaps even slightly more. Before I read this, I was hearing more like, oh, it's like, maybe a third, but it's really half. And again, keep in mind, there's some confident and outspoken introverts that people are probably often thinking are extroverts because they don't understand what introversion and extroversion really means. I had Lori and her extroverted husband on the show, check out that episode. You'll hear a great example of what it's like for an introvert and extrovert married and what a conversation might look like and understanding the differences and it really embracing and understanding the differences. Maybe it would be helpful to work with a coach or counselor. We've had coaches, counselors, therapists, psychologists on the show, and it could really help to talk with others about, your gifts and coming up with self-awareness. And of course, keep listening to the Quiet and Strong podcast. We will continue to talk about different personality types, how you can be strong. My guests, sometimes they're experts in introversion, sometimes just they they're introverts that have learned to lean into their introversion for success in some area, and they share great strategies and tips from an introverted lens. So you have your own strengths. They won't look exactly like mine, and they shouldn't. I've overcome shyness and I'm confident, but in a relative sense, I may still appear quiet to some. And that was frustrating for me when I realized that. I once had a meeting where I thought we had a great back and forth discussion. At the end, the other person said, "You're a man of few words." At first, I was taken back. I took it as an insult, but then I reframed it. Yes, I am a man of few words compared to some. I'm a deep thinker. I think before I speak. I try to make my words count. There's no right or wrong way of processing. Some people speak to think, others think and then speak. I realized that as confident as I am, I'm never going to say as many words as an extroverted colleague, friend, or family member. So if you're a person of few words, be proud of that. Your words are likely carefully chosen and meaningful. And if you encounter someone quiet or a few words, don't assume they're disengaged. Just listen. Listen when they speak. You may hear some gems of wisdom. We can feel confident in conversations by understanding ourselves and asking for what we need. For example, as I'm thinking in a conversation, I may share something like, "I need a minute to think about that," or "I'm thinking," or "Let me get back to you." Preparation can help too. Before meetings, presentations, I think ahead of time. That preparation allows me to contribute more confidently. Preparation can help you in your confidence. Do your best preparation as you can, but keep in mind you can't prepare for everything. And don't fear a little silence in conversation. Remember, if there's silence, you're not the only one not talking. Another aspect is small talk. And there's two pieces to small talk when it comes to introversion. Sometimes we're not very good at it, but we can get better. And sometimes we just don't really care for it, even if we're great at it. So I used to dislike small talk. Talking about the weather or the price of gas felt pointless, but I've learned something important. Small talk is often the gateway to the meaningful conversations that we want to have. Connection has to start somewhere. And I may not be the best small talker, but I've learned not to fear it and that I can get better at it. And I have gotten better at it. In small talk, if you're going to know, if you know some interactions coming up, prepare some general talking points, something interesting going on with you or in the world. Pay attention to what's in the environment, comment on that. Maybe you're at a dinner and you could talk about the food that they're having. Also remember that most people don't have incredibly brilliant things to say all the time. So, and just relax and remember that small talk is just that, small talk. You know, Negative social feedback about being introverted can cause shyness. Many introverts, they grow up being told you're too quiet, aloof, you need to speak up, especially in extrovert valuing environments like school or workplaces can be. Repeated criticism and rejection of your natural style can erode confidence in your personality and make you very wary of social judgment, which promotes shyness. So reframe it, you know, tell yourself, I prefer smaller or deeper interactions, and it's a good thing. I can do well in large groups, but let's try to get my preference as much as I can. So when an introvert's natural preferences are misunderstood, criticized, or rarely affirmed, those preferences can be wrapped in fear and self-doubt. And that's where introversion can start to feel like shyness. Not understanding yourself or being misunderstood by others can fuel shyness because it gradually teaches you that something's wrong with something's wrong with me. Why can't I be like that person that seems so easy in conversation? And then you start avoiding speaking up because you expect to be judged or misunderstood. And that looks like shyness. So, in short, the misinterpretation of natural introverted traits by you or by others can create shame, fear of judgment, and that emotional pattern is what grows into shyness. So, again, confidence can come from self-awareness. Confidence grows when you understand your strengths, your needs, your natural way of operating. So I remember attending a 2-day conference with a lot of small group discussions. And there was one session that, I wasn't really familiar with the topic, and the old self-doubt crept in, starting to panic. But then I contributed where I could. I was ready to say, if called on, I need to think about that. And then at the same conference in another session, I was the expert. I had a lot to say. That experience reminded me when I need time to process, nothing is wrong with me. When I have expertise, my voice flows freely. That's awareness, and awareness builds confidence. Deep thinking is a strength. I think that's what introversion is deep thinking. We're often deep in thought, but sometimes sharing our thoughts can feel risky, especially if the other people you're talking to haven't processed in the same way. I've shared some new ideas before and felt like I was receiving some strange looks. But I've learned this: different thinking is often what it takes to change the world. If you think deeply, own it. Refine your ideas, prepare, stand firm when necessary. Your perspective, it matters. Another thief of confidence is comparison. Stop comparing yourself to others. Comparison destroys confidence. We all have our own strengths. Everyone has great gifts. Comparison can take its toll on our confidence. For example, I could compare myself to someone I consider a more charismatic, or I could use my gifts and prepare in a way that suits me and my introverted nature and be so much more effective in my presentation. We all have different gifts. There is only one you. Focus on developing your strengths instead of wishing you had someone else's. And also expand. Don't escape your comfort zone. People often say, get out of your comfort zone. I prefer this. Expand your comfort zone. If something feels scary and you push through without changing your thinking, it may feel scary again next time, and the next time, and the next time. Instead, reflect. Why does this feel uncomfortable? What is scary about this situation? What belief can I change? What can I learn here? You know what? I did that, and it wasn't scary. While I don't think that we're all alike, I do think that we all share the gift of reflection. We're able to, as introverts, to take some time and think, how did that go? What did I do well? What do I want to do differently? And how will I go about that? As your thinking shifts, you're not just getting out of your comfort zone, you're growing and expanding your comfort zone. Another thing that can take a toll on introverted confidence is when we feel our way is wrong. You need to define your own version of what you like to do, what your version of fun is. You know what you enjoy. Sometimes we can lack confidence when we feel like our way or our version of fun is wrong. Maybe you like staying in. Maybe you like going out, but not all night. Maybe you like a balance in there. Don't let someone else define what's normal or fun for you. Understand the differences, especially between introverts and extroverts. This goes a long way in being confident. Neither is right or wrong. They're just simply different. Learning that introversion is a normal, healthy personality trait, not a problem to fix, removes a lot of shame and self-blame. When you see your introversion as a preference rather than as a deficiency, social situations feel less like a test you're failing and more like a choice that you can shape. Value your strengths. When you recognize typical introverted strengths like deep thinking, listening, one-on-one connection, careful observation, you start to see yourself as someone who has real social value. Seeing introverted traits as strengths, not weaknesses, naturally boosts confidence and counters the unboring, awkward story that feeds shyness. Match your social life to your wiring. Understanding your energy limits lets you plan small groups, time to recharge, more meaningful conversations instead of forcing constant large group socializing. And the key word is there, constant, because we can have fun in large group socializing or just socializing in general. It's just we don't want it to be constant, you know? When situations fit your wiring better, you feel less overwhelmed and more capable, which directly lowers social anxiety and shy behavior. Use your self-knowledge as a growth plan. Self-awareness about your introversion helps you set specific, achievable goals. For example, maybe you want to talk to one person at this event or speak up once in the meeting. Instead of trying to be outgoing, it's a more actionable goal, more specific. Over time, your introverted informed practice path, learning to use your strengths, managing your challenges, increases confidence, reduces shyness, while you remain fully and comfortably introverted. I'm no longer shy, but I will always be an introvert. I'll always think deeply. I will always need some time alone. Again, I'm going to want time with others too. I will always process internally first, and that's a strength. By understanding my introversion, I've reduced anxiety, built confidence, and created the connections and success that I want. You can too. You can make your voice heard. You can build confidence. You can embrace your strength as an introvert. Thank you so much for joining me on the Quiet and Strong podcast. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Reach out at quietandstrong.com. Let's keep this conversation going. Get to know your introverted strengths and needs and be strong. And remember, if you're interested in getting to know yourself better, there's a free Type Finder personality assessment on the Quiet and Strong website. This assessment will give you a brief report, including the 4-letter Myers-Briggs code, and I will add a link in the show notes.